Alright, in problem number 1 of set number 7, we're given a set of 6 data values, 1, 2, 7, 15, 17, and 18. And they tell us that each number in the data set is multiplied by 3.6, and then 4 is added to the product. And they're asking what is the mean, and the mean is the same as average. Okay, the arithmetic average, same thing, of the new set of 6 data values. Okay? So, well, you know how to find an average, I bet. So the average, oops, the average is equal to the sum of the data values over the number of data values. So number of data values. Okay. So, let's see. Let me first of all give you a hint. A lot of kids would be tempted just to say, okay, let's see, 1 times 3.6 is 3.6, add 4, you get 7.6. And then take 3.6 times 2, you get 7.2, add 4, you'll get 11.2, right? And so on. But it gets a little more, it's a lot of work, for one thing. It's prone to error. You know, it's really easy to make a mistake when you're multiplying, say, 17 times 3.6, and then it's just really easy to make a mistake. So my hint to you would be not to do it that way. I mean, you can. It's you're perfectly capable of doing it, I bet. But I want you to take a look at this computation and see if you can use some properties of numbers in order to simplify your arithmetic. And those properties I would tell you to look at are, one, the distributive property. Distributive property. Now, what does the distributive property say? Basically, the distributive property says that if you have a number C and you take it times the quantity A plus B, that's the same thing as CA plus CB. C times A plus C times B. Okay? I use a lot of the algebraic notation, so I leave out my time symbol there. So I kind of like to think of this as, let's say you have a basket of apples and bananas. And so you've got this apple, you've got a certain number of apples, and you've got a certain number of bananas in this basket. Okay? And let's say you have C of those baskets. Then if you want to find out the total number of the pieces of fruit that you have, you would have C times A apples, and you would have C times B bananas. So the total number, of the pieces of fruit that you would have would be CA plus CB. Okay? So, think of the parentheses as like the mathematical notation for a basket. So you've got a basket of some A's and some B's, okay? So that's just saying that you want to take C times all of this. So for example, if I had 5 baskets of, say, 3 bananas and 3 apples and 2 bananas, then that's equal to 5 times 3 plus 5 times 2 pieces of fruit, right? And that's just going to be 15 plus 10 is 25, and on this side you could compute it out. This would be 5 times 5, okay? And that also gives you 25. Okay? So the distributive property is handy, and you can use it even if there's not just two things in your parentheses. You can have a whole list of a plus b plus x plus y plus z. You can have as many things added together within the parentheses, and it still holds that you multiply each thing within the parentheses times c. And it also works backwards. So if you can factor out a c from the things you're adding up, then you can actually go backwards and write it like this. So you can factor out a c. Okay? So it works in both directions. And that will be handy to use in order to simplify your arithmetic here. And the other thing, the other property I want you to look at is the commutative property. Commutative property. Okay, and the commutative property just basically says that, and there's actually a commutative property for addition, and there's also a commutative property for multiplication. And basically what it says is that if you have a whole sum of numbers, like say you have, well, and they just usually list it as 2. So if you get a plus b, oops, didn't mean to do that. A plus b is the same as b plus a. So it's just saying that it doesn't matter what order you add things in. Okay, in the same way for multiplication, if you have a times b, that's the same as b times a. Okay? And so, and again, this can hold for a whole list of things being added together. So it doesn't have to be just two things. Like here we have a and b, but you can have a plus b plus c plus d plus e plus f, and it doesn't. You can shift around the order of your addition. Like for example, if you have 3 plus 8 plus 7 plus 6, sometimes it's handy to actually look at the 3 plus 7 because that's 10. Okay, and then it can sometimes, then you have 16 and you have to add 8 to it and you get 24. So sometimes it's handy to be able to pair numbers because they make a nice number that ends in a 0. The same way with in multiplication, if you have 2 times 8 times 7 times 5, sometimes it's nice to be able to pair the 2 and the 5, because then that makes 10, and then if you probably know 7 times 8 is 56, and then just add a 0 and you get 560. So so that can make your life easier and make your multiplication easier. So look for those tricks. Look for ways that you can use the commutative property and the distributive property to make your arithmetic simpler. Okay, that was a nice long hint. I'm already at 8 minutes and 42 seconds. So let's go ahead and solve this problem. I am going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase this stuff because I don't want to do it that way. I want to find an easier way to do this. So I'm going to actually scroll down here and give myself a little more room because I want to just write this whole thing out for you. So we're taking 3.6 times 1 and then adding 4. Alright? And then we're taking 3.6 times 2 and adding 4. And we're taking 3.6 times 7 and adding 4. And 3.6 times 15 and adding 4. And 3.6 times 17 and adding 4. And 3.6 times 18 and adding 4. Okay, so that's what we would do. Now I don't want to do all that calculation. I'm just listing it out. So let's take a look and see if we can use, I'm just calculating here the top part of our average, the sum. Okay, so we'll work with that first. So we'll say here, this is just the sum that we're going to use on the top of our average. Okay. Now how can I use the distributive or the commutative properties to make this easier? Let's look at, first of all, we have a 4 here, and a 4 here, and a 4 here, a 4 here, a 4 here, and a 4 here. Now we have 6 numbers, so we've added 4 6 times. Now you know that if you add 4 6 times, you just get 6 times 4, right? So I'm going to just write that here. I'm going to say 6 times 4. Okay? Then I can get rid of all of these 4's. And what I have left is 3.6 times 1, 3.6 times 2, times 3.6 times 7, 3.6 times 15, and so on. And you can see that there's a factor of 3.6 in all of those things I have left. So I'm actually going to factor that out using the distributive property in the in the reverse way. And I'm going to write 3.6 times 1 plus 2 plus 7 plus 15 plus 17 plus 18. Okay? So we're getting there. It's looking a lot easier. We know that 6 times 4 is 24. And we have 3.6 times, now I'm gonna try to figure out a way to make my addition easier. I'm seeing 1 plus 2 plus 7, and that's 10. And I'm seeing 17 and 18, that's what, 35. And if I add 15 to that, that gives me 50, right? Okay, so I have basically 50 plus 10. So I'm going to say 3.6 times 60. All right? All right. So far, so good. All right, now, the last thing we have to do to compute the average. Now, I'm not going to go any further with that. I don't have to complete that because I know that when I compute my average, I'm going to take this sum and divide it by 6 because there's 6 data values. So I have 24 plus 3.6 times 60. Now, I think what I'm going to do, just to make the distributive property a little more obvious, is I'm going to take 1/6 of that. Okay, instead of putting the whole thing over 6, I'm going to just take 1/6. Same thing. And then I'll use the distributive property and take 1/6 times 24 is just 4. And 1/6 times this, now I'm going to actually combine it with that because that makes it easy. So I got 3.6 times 10. Woohoo, look at that. Cool. All right, 3.6 times 10 is just 36. And if I add 4 to it, I get 40. Woohoo, I didn't even use a calculator. So, on a lot of these math competitions, you aren't allowed to use a calculator. So knowing how to use the distributive property, the commutative property in creative ways will make your life a lot easier. So get used to that.